Morning viewers, this is Kasturi Day. Today I'm back with this pollination and fertilization chapter of class 9 ICSE syllabus. So for continuing with this, we need to first you need to stay with me, subscribe my channel for getting getting notifications. For getting notifications, you need to stay with me and ring the notification bell. And if you are liking the videos, press the like button, share with your friends so that they can also be benefited from these videos. And don't forget to meditate before you start your day. So for meditation, let us concentrate for just 1 minute. Concentrate on a point of light, and then we will start with the chapter, discussion of the chapter. So for meditation, let us concentrate on the point of light. Think that point of light is giving you energy, falling on you. Whole body of yours is lighting up, getting energy. Think that source of light is coming from the Almighty God. Fully becoming energetic, getting interest, whatever enjoying your work, enjoying your day, you're becoming successful, thanking you for giving you such a good achievement. Let us start with the discussion. So first is pollination and fertilization. So what is pollination and fertilization? Now what is pollination? A pollination is a process in which pollen grains are transferred to the stigma. We know that when pollination occurs, the pollen grains from the anthers of the stamens. Okay, the androecium part, we know that the flower has two parts, that is the male part and the female part. The male part is known as androecium and the female part is known as the gynoecium. And androecium has another, again, two parts, that is anthers and the stamens, and gynoecium has stigma, style, and ovary. Okay, these are the essential parts which are present in the flower. These help in the sexual reproduction of the plant. Okay, so for this, the anthers of the anthers containing the pollen grains, the anthers produce pollen grains. So the pollen grains from the anthers has to be transferred to the stigma, where uh, from where these pollen grains will germinate and will reach the ovary, where it will be fertilized. It will fertilize the egg cell, and the zygote will be formed. And later on, the future of the zygote will be fruit and the seed. Okay. So now what is pollination? Pollination is this transfer of the pollen grains from the anthers or from the androecium to the stigma of the gynoecium. Okay. So this transfer is known as pollination. The pollen grains are produced in the powdered form. Okay, pollen form, that is powdered material form, they are produced, which in turn produced in the anthers of the stamens. The stamens, the tip of the stamens has the anthers, and the anthers, they produce the pollen grains in the form of powdered material. Okay, the stamens, we know it is the male part of the flower, and each grain consists of two sparks. Each pollen grain that consists of two sperm nuclei which participate in the reproduction of the plant. The female flower, the flower's female part, the female part of the flower is the stigma of the carpel, where the anthers, where the pollen grains will land, and later on it will be transferred to the ovary, where it will be, where the fertilization will take place, and the fruit will be produced. Fruit with the seed will be produced. This is the ultimate thing. So to make the pollination work successfully, the pollen grains must be transferred from the same species of the flower. Okay, to make it successful, the pollen grains must be transferred from the same species of the flower. But it does not happen always, because different species can also occur, and even same species also. It occurs only. Okay, and sometimes the different species also occurs. This pollination occurs. So the process of pollination begins when the pollen grains from the respective flower lands on the stigma and forms a pollen tube with the style length connecting both the stigma and the ovary. So what happens? We know the stigma is at the top, then comes the style, and then comes the ovary. This way. So this will be the structure of the ovary. So this will be the stigma, this is the style, and this will be the ovary. So the pollen tube, which is formed from the pollen grain, that will also take that same path, that is from the stigma to the style, and then it will be coming to the ovary. The whole style length will be the pollen tube. Okay, connecting both the stigma and the ovary. Stigma is at the upper end and ovary will be at the lower end of the style. Now, after the completion of the pollen tube, the pollen grain starts transmitting the sperm cells. Okay, after the completion of the pollen tube, the pollen grains will divide into, they will transmit in the sperm cells from the grain to the ovary. It will transfer the sperm cells into the ovary. Not the grain into the ovary. Now the pollen tube grows towards the ovule base and through double fertilization. One sperm cell fertilizes the egg cell of the ovule, which starts the development of the embryo. The another sperm cell in the pollen tube will combine with the two subsidiary sexual nuclei of the ovule, which initiates the formation of the reserved food tissue. So there will be a double fertilization. Triple fusion is there. How triple fusion and double fertilization? What happens? The ovule contains three nuclei. Okay? The ovule contains three nuclei. One is the egg cell. Another two are the supporting cells. Two subsidiary sexual nuclei are there. Okay? Two subsidiary sexual nuclei are there. So what happens? As the sperm cells or the male gamete, there are two male gametes. So what happens? The two male from the two male gametes, one will combine with the egg cell. Okay, fuse with the egg cell to form the zygote, which will develop into an embryo later on. And the other sperm cell, other male nuclei, that will combine with the two subsidiary sexual nuclei of the ovule. What will that form? That will form the reserve food tissue for the embryo. Okay? The growing, so how many fertilization are there? Double fertilization, one with the ovule, one with the egg cell, another with the two subsidiary nuclei, subsidiary sexual nuclei. So as there are two nuclei in the subsidiary nuclei, and one, this one is combining, one sperm cell is combining, and there is one egg cell combining with one sexual nuclei, one male nuclei. So what will happen? There will be double fertilization and there will be triple fusion. Triple fusion will be there. Clear? Now the growing ovule eventually develops into a seed. Ovule will eventually develop into a seed and the ovary will turn into a fruit. Okay? Now see, this is the pollination which is occurring. See, from the pollen grains from the anthers will be released. Okay, these are the pollen grains that will be taken by a pollinating agent. Here it's a bee. Okay, pollinator, and this will transfer the pollen grain on the stigma and there will be pollination done. Okay. What are the modes of pollination in plant? Name the modes. What are the modes? One is self-pollination, another is cross-pollination. Self-pollination is, it can be of two types, autogamy or genotogamy. Okay, and cross-pollination is known as allogamy. Clear? Now we come to self-pollination. What is self-pollination? when the pollen grains of a flower is transferred to the stigma of the same flower. Pollen grains of a flower is transferred to the stigma of the same flower. That is known as self-pollination. Okay, so either it is the same flower or it can be of the flower of the same plant. Okay? So autogamy, there are two types I told you. Self-pollination has two types. One is autogamy and getonogamy. Okay. So first is autogamy. Autogamy here, the self-pollination method where the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma of the same flower. Excuse me. Getonogamy is the self-pollination method where pollen grains are transferred from the anther of one plant to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. Okay? One flower to the stigma of the another flower of the same plant. Clear? This is getonogamy, and autogamy is the same flower. Transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. Okay. Then cross-pollination. Cross-pollination or allogamy, this means here the pollination takes place that pollen is delivered from the stigma of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same species. Okay, different species, it's very rare condition, but it happens. But generally it happens in the same species. It's a general method. Okay. But the plants that adapt themselves for cross-pollination have several mechanisms. See, when it is transferred from within the same flower or say rather the same plant, it's very easy. Okay, same flower, it will just drop the anthers to the stigma of the same plant, but same flower. But when it is from one plant to another plant, that is cross-pollination phase, the plant has to adapt for that, for cross-pollination. Several mechanisms are there to prevent self-pollination. Then only cross-pollination will occur. Okay. So what are the adaptations? Okay. Their reproductive organs may be arranged in such a way that the self-pollination do not happen. So the reproductive organs, either the stamens or the stigma, I mean the ovary or the stigma, rather stigma, not ovary, the stigma, they are not in equal position. They will mature at different times, like that. These all conditions happen. So we will start discussing all those conditions. So first is the reproductive organs may be arranged in a different way. Self-pollination that does not occur. To prevent the self-pollination, rather, you can say. Okay. And the stamens and the carpels may mature at different times. Okay, this can take the maturity. The stamens, that is the male part, and the female part, that will mature in the same different times. That's why self-pollination cannot occur. So that they have to depend on cross-pollination. So these two conditions are there. See, cross-pollination is occurring, and this is the same plant. And one is at the same plant, and another is the same flower. So this is self-pollination, and one plant to another plant, that is cross-pollination. Now, the advantages of the self-pollination. What are the advantages of the self-pollination? Okay. In a bisexual flower, stamens and carpels mature at the same time. When there is a bisexual flower, the stamens and carpels they mature at the same time. There is less or no wastage of pollen grains. Okay. So what are the advantages? First is that stamens and carpels they mature at the same time. There is less or no wastage of pollen grains compared to cross-pollination. Only small quantity of pollen grain is sufficient for this self-pollination. Okay. The purity of the species is maintained. There is less diversity in the genes. Purity of the species is maintained. No coming from here and there, and diversity of the genes is happening. So purity of the species is maintained. Then external agents are not required for this pollination, self-pollination. Then scent and nectar need not to be produced by the flowers, okay, to attract this pollinating agents. Okay, it's not required. Then a lot of nutrient material is saved. This energy can be used for this one, for self-pollination or in developing its own characteristics. So this nutrient material is, lot of nutrient material is made. Now, what are the disadvantages of self-pollination? Main disadvantage is that as there is no diversity is very less, little chance of diversity. So that times what that may lead to what uh, low immunity power there can decrease, because continuous self-pollination may decrease its immunity power, which can attract diseases. More diseases can be uh, attracted by this plants. Okay, then the vitality and the hybrid vigor or heterosis of the plant species are reduced. Okay, like their vigor, their strength is reduced by continuously self-pollinating. Only one species is being used up, only one characteristics, I mean its own characteristics is being used up, no additional new varieties are being added, new genes are added. So there is the vitality or the hybrid vigor that is being lost, reduced. Then it does not yield new varieties, as there is no cross-pollination, so different genes will not be added and there will be no new varieties. No mixing of genes, therefore self-pollination reduces the strength and the vitality of the race. The weaker or the defective character, if the breed has some weaker characteristics or defective characteristics, that will be carried on, that will not be eliminated, and that will increase as the generations move on, and that will reduce the immunity power, that will that will reduce the immunity power, that will reduce the vitality and vigor. Okay, there is very little chance for improvement in the next generation, because no new substances are being added in the characteristics. Okay. Then the advantages of cross-pollination. We completed self-pollination and we come to cross-pollination. So what are the things? Quality seeds are produced. As what happens, as there is variety of genes being added from different plants. So what happens? The quality seeds are produced and the plant species show a high rate of vigor. Excuse me. The vigor increases. Okay. Quality seeds are produced, offsprings are healthier, that is, next generation becomes healthier. The seeds produced are abundant and viable. Okay, and all unisexual plants they reproduce by this method, because unisexual plants they have only one reproductive organ, either male or female. So that time what happens? They have to depend on the cross pollination. Otherwise, there will be no self pollination will happen. There will be no pollination. So that times by this method, by cross-pollination, unisexual plants can reproduce. Okay, and then spring plants show better immunity against the diseases. Then pollination introduces the gene variety to the species, as this pollination happens between two different varieties of the same species or between two different species. Here, then cross-pollination improves fertility resistance. If they have any weak characteristics like fertility resistance is there, that can be improved by this cross-pollination. Then the disadvantages of cross-pollination, what are those? We know that there are some good advantages of this cross-pollination, but what are the disadvantages? Excessive wastage of the pollen grains. Lots of pollen grains has to be produced. Otherwise, there may be, there is no surety, that the pollination will take place in one go. So that's why a lot of pollen grains has to be produced. So excessive loss of these pollen grains are wasted. I mean, the waste of this pollen grains happens. Okay, so large quantities of this pollen grains has to be produced to ensure fertilization. Due to the genetic recombination, good characteristics may get lost, and unwanted characteristics may get introduced. Okay, then the combination is there. As we know that different characteristics are being added, some good characteristics may be added, but there might be added. That means there is a chance of bad characteristics may add also. So that chance is also there. So good characteristics may be lost and bad characteristics may be added also. This possibility is also there. The pollination is not always certain, as some pollinating agents is always needed, because we have to do, the plant has to depend on some pollinating agents, and if their pollinating agent is not available at the proper time, then pollination is not done. Okay, the process is uneconomical for the plant, as the flowers have to be large, colored, scented, and have to produce nectar to attract the pollinating agents. Because lots of other showy things has to be added, so therefore it is uneconomical. Lots of energy is wasted in this showy, producing these showy things to attract agents, I mean to pollinating agents. Okay. Next is difference between self and cross-pollination. So what is this? Self-pollination transfers pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or of the different flower. But cross-pollination, pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the different flower. This process can take place between the two flowers present in different plants. Then it occurs in the flowers which are genetically identical. It occurs between flowers which are genetically different. Okay? Genetically different in cross-pollination, self-pollination genetically identical. Then in self-pollination, few species that exhibit self-pollination are Paphiopedilum parisi and Arabidopsis thaliana. Okay, and few species that exhibit cross-pollination: apples, daffodils, pumpkins, grasses, etc. Okay, self-pollination increases genetic uniformity and decreases genetic variation. And in cross-pollination, it's just the opposite. That is, it decreases genetic uniformity and increases the genetic variation. Self-pollination produces limited amounts of pollen grains, whereas cross-pollination produces large amounts of pollen grains. Because they have to depend on pollinating agents. No? Then in self-pollination, both the stigma and anthers simultaneously mature. That is, they mature at the same time. But in cross-pollination, they mature at different times. Then self-pollination transfers a limited number of pollens, whereas in cross-pollination, they transfers large number of pollens. Self-pollination, the process is carried out even when the flowers are closed. In case of cross-pollination, for cross-pollination to happen, the flowers should be open. Okay, that's why they attract. By this, they will attract the outside agents, outside pollinating agents. Then in self-pollination, they need not produce any. The pollinators are not required to transfer the pollen grains, but in case of cross-pollination, pollinators are required to transfer the pollen grains. Then pollen grains are transferred directly to the flower stigma in case of self-pollination. In case of this one, cross-pollination, they are carried via wind, insects, animals, water, etc. as the pollinating agents. Okay. Next, we come to the factors which favor the cross-pollination. Now, lots of species are pollinated through cross-pollination. The factors which favor the cross-pollination are unisexuality, that is unisexual, that is single sex it is having, that is the flower may be having the gynoecium or the androecium only, not both the sexes. Both the sexual organs are not there. That is unisexuality. Dichogamy. Then self-sterility. It is not, it cannot fertilize its own stigma. It will not be able to fertilize its own ovary, not stigma, its ovary. Dichogamy means it is literally it means two marriages. Okay? Then mechanical and structural barriers are there, not heterostyle condition. That is, the style is above. Okay? Then unisexuality, what happens? In some plants, flowers are unisexual and bloom on different plants. In this case, cross-pollination is the only possibility. For example, palms and papaya. In some plants, the male and the female flowers are different but bloom on the same plant. Okay? So, male flowers are different but they are blooming in the same plant. That also causes the cross-pollination. For example, cucumber. Dichogamy in some plants, maturation period of the androecium and gynoecium is different. There are certain plants in which the pollen grains of the same flower fail to reach its stigma. There's certain, this is there. I mean, structural barriers are there. So that the pollen grains will not be able to reach the stigma of the same flower. There may be a hood covering the stigma, acts as a mechanical barrier in some fancy flowers. In heterostyle condition, what is that? In some flowers, the growth of the style and the stigma grow on different heights, which eliminates the chances of self-pollination. For example, primrose. Okay. Then these are the conditions. Then agents of cross-pollination. What are the agents of cross-pollination? Cross-pollinating agents are occurs only when a pollen grain is transferred from one flower to another by means of pollinating agents. Okay? By means of pollinating agents, this one is transferred. Okay, the pollen grains are transferred from one flower to the other. These agents can be categorized into two categories, biotic agents and abiotic agents. Biotic agents are known as zoophily. Okay, these agents are biotic means life, that is living organisms are the agents. Abiotic means that they are the non-living factors or non-living agents. Okay, so zoophily, that is biotic agents, those are this is the method where the pollination takes place with the help of certain living organisms. Four categories of zoophily are there: entomophily, ornithophily, chiropterophily. Not four, there's a 5 categories. Artificial pollination is also there. Chiropterophily, elypophily, and artificial pollination. Okay, so entomophily means it's pollination carried out by insects. Ornithophily means it's carried out by birds. Chiropterophily means carried out by bats. Elypophily means carried out by elephants. And artificial pollination is by man himself. Okay. So pollinating agents are all the types, all these types. Okay. Now these are the biotic agents. Now we come to abiotic agents. What are the abiotic agents? Abiotic agents are wind, that is air, and water. Water, when air is as a pollinating used as a pollinating agent, then it is known as anemophily. Pollination occurring with the help of air. This type of pollination is observed in large forests where the air carries the pollen from one tree to the another different tree in another area. It can be on the same tree as well, like coconut, palm, maize, etc., where air is used as a pollinating agent. Hydrophily, water is used as a pollinating agent. Okay, these are the very common in plant groups such as algae, pteridophytes, bryophytes. For many aquatic plants such as water hyacinth and lily, flowers emerge above the water level and other pollinated by insects or wind. The pollen grains are protected by a mucilaginous covering in most water pollinated species. Okay. So what happens here? I told you some aquatic plants. These are the examples. That is hyacinth, water hyacinth, lily, flowers which emerge above the water level, and they are which are above the water level, they will be pollinated by either wind or by insects. But if they are inside the water, then water will be the pollinating agent. The process, the pollen grains in case of water hydrophilous condition, what happens? The pollen grains are covered by mucilaginous covering. Next is the characteristics of the entomophilous flowers. The main characteristics of the insects are the flowers are brightly colored, they are showing, they are large, that is very conspicuous flowers. They're brightly very showy. Okay, and if they are small, they become conspicuous by grouping as in capitulum and they group together. If they are very small, they will group together to form a showy thing so that the insects are attractive. Okay, the flowers have a sweet scent to attract the insects for pollination. They produce a lot of nectar. They have nectar secreting glands. The abundant nectar they produce to attract the insects. The flowers may have edible pollens also, like rosa and clematis. They have edible pollens. And the flowers have stamens and stigma which are inserted. Okay, that's why if they're inserted, the insect will go inside the flower, and while taking the nectar, they will their body will be brushed off with this anthers of the from the stigma. I mean from the stamens, and when again they will go to another flower, when they will start taking the nectar, go to take the nectar, they will brush their body on the stigma where the pollen will be transferred to the stigma. Okay? The flowers have sticky or spiny pollen grains which enable the insects to carry them. That is, they will stick to the body of the insect very easily as the pollen grains will be sticky or spiny. The flowers have sticky stigma. Again, the stigma becomes sticky so that they can receive easily the pollen grains, which will help them to receive the pollen grains easily. Okay? So this is an example of entomophilous flowers. See this is the bee which is sitting on the flower. Okay, it is a bunch of flowers, sunflower it is. Bunch of flowers are there, clustered of flowers. So it has combined, these flowers are small and that's why they have combined to form a large conspicuous thing. Okay, so inflorescence you can say, and that's why they have combined to form the large flower. Okay, for examples are rose, lotus, sunflower, bougainvillea, etc. Next is ornithophilous flower. The ornithophilous flower, the following characteristics are: they are large in size, they're tubular or cup-shaped or womb-shaped. Okay? They are brightly colored, red, scarlet, pink, orange, yellow, okay, which will attract the birds, blue, like that. Okay, brightly colors are there. Then the flowers are scentless, but they produce nectar in large quantities. Then the pollen and the nectar form the floral rewards for the birds visiting the flowers. Okay? The floral parts are tough and leathery so that they withstand the visitor's impact. Because if they are very soft and feathery, then they will fall. The flower will be destroyed as soon as the bird will visit them. But they have to be strong enough. They can withstand the power of the powerful impact of the visitors. So they have to be strong enough. But they produce a lot of nectars and they are brightly colored, you can say, and they're very large in size so that the bird can enter them. Okay, and they will pollinate the flower. This is the ornithophilous flower. You can see some examples are bottle brush, red coral tree, and silk wattle. Example of the birds which pollinate, those are the hummingbirds, sunbirds, honey eaters, and honey creepers. Next we come to chiropterophilous flowers. What do you mean by chiropterophilous? Uh, these are the bats which pollinate. So the bat which pollinate the flowers which are pollinated by bats, those flowers are large and white or pale colored so that they can be distinguished from their dark surroundings during night. Okay, the bats can distinguish them from the dark surroundings. Okay, the flowers, we know the bat comes out during the night only, the dark surroundings. So the flowers have to be strong, fruity, musky fragrance. They should have and produce a large amount of nectar so the bats can be attracted. They are naturally large and wide-mouthed to accommodate the head of the bat. And as the bat seeks the nectar, the faces and the heads become covered with the pollen. And when they go to the next flower, they will transfer the pollen to the next flower, to the stigma of the next flower. So this is the example of the chiropterophilous flowers like Adansonia, Trigalia, Bohunia, and Anthocyphilus. These are some of the examples. Next is we come to Elypophilous flowers. These are the flowers which are pollinated by elephant, mainly Rafflesia. Okay? It is found in Rafflesia, whose flowers are very large and found at the ground level. The pollen grains of one flower get attached to the feet of the elephants and may be carried to the stigma of another flower when the flower gets trampled by their feet. Okay? So when the elephant moves like this, it will trample it, one flower, and the stigma will, the anthers will be attached to it, and they will be carried to another flower. When they are stamping on that flower, that will be pollinated. Like that it happens. This is the example of the Rafflesia. This is the picture of the Rafflesia, which is an Elypophilous flower. Now, artificial pollination. Here, the man is involved. Okay, so what does he do? He will create the pollination himself, allowing the pollen to fertilize the ovaries and create the seeds that will develop into fruits and new plants. What are the characteristics? There is an absence of any other pollinating agent. The stamens of the flower are touched to the stigma by the female flower and rolled smoothly and gently to transfer the pollen grains to the stigma. Artificially, it is done. Okay. They were touched with this to the stigma. They were rolled over the stigma so that the pollen grains are transferred. The anthers are removed from the stamen of one young flower, that is emasculation, so that they cannot be self-pollination is avoided, and they are covered with plastic bags so that self-pollination cannot happen. Then such flowers are pollinated for the plants of the desired variety. Then fans are set up over the branches of the shaking stem so that the pollen grains are flown away over the stigma. Then this increases the fruit size and the seed numbers. It has the ability of converting the flower to export quality fruits. It is more suitable as it is done. It does not depend on any chance factors. Other pollinating agents are avoided. And through this type of pollination, a large variety of hybrid fruit plants can be generated. These are the advantages of this artificial pollination. Next is artificial pollination. See, this is done. What is the anthers are being transferred to the this one stigma. Okay. Like almonds, cherries, kiwis, pears, pumpkins. These are artificially pollinated. So I'll stop here. I'll continue with the rest of the chapter in my next video. So till then, please do revise this chapter. If you have any doubt, please do write in the comment box. And if you are liking the video, press the like button, share with your friends so that they can also be benefited from these videos. Okay. And please do meditate before you start your day. Okay? So thank you for joining and have a good day.